Finding an accommodation in Australia is not a rocket science, but it's not a child's play either. And many overseas students find it quite challenging to find an accommodation in Australia. So here is a step-by-step guide on renting an accommodation in Australia for overseas students. Step 1. Look for the property. Now, there are various types of accommodations that are available for overseas students in Australia. And this guide is pretty much applicable to all types of accommodations. But we are specifically focusing on private rentals here. Before you even start looking for the property, you need to consider a few factors before choosing the accommodation. The first one, budget. How much money would you like to spend? Number 2, area. Which suburb or area would you like to live in? Number 3, facilities. What sort of facilities do you expect in the property? Example, pool, gym, etc. Number 4, location. How close it is to your university, work or other shopping areas. And last but not the least is public transport. How accessible is the public transport from the property? Now, the most popular way of finding accommodation in Australia is through different websites. So there are some popular websites like Gumtree, Real Estate, Domain and Flatmates. If you're looking for student-specific accommodations, then you can also search on student.com and universityliving.com. Apart from online, you can also search accommodation from student services from your institute, student notice board, newspapers and real estate agents' offices. Once you have shortlisted few properties, it's time to go to the next step. Step 2. Inspect the property. It's very important that you inspect the property before signing any lease, because sometimes the images that they show on the web is quite different to what you see in reality. Now, usually there are some specific days available for inspections, and we suggest you to confirm these timings and days with your property manager or the landlord. Most popular day in Australia for the inspections is Saturdays, and usually the inspection timings are only for 15 minutes to 30 minutes, so you need to be quick for the inspections. It's always a good idea to bring some sort of an ID, as some property managers would like to check that before they let you inspect the property. Now, make sure you inspect the property thoroughly. After inspecting the property, if you are happy, then go to step 3. Now, if you're not happy with the property, then you will need to keep inspecting other properties until you find one that meets your requirements. Step 3. Application. So you're happy with the property, it's time to apply for that. It's a very good idea to apply as soon as possible if you like the property. And you will need to complete an application form for the property. In this application form, you will need to provide some details like your personal details, your employment history, some sort of income proof like pay slips, your previous rental history, and some sort of references. Once you submit the application, your property manager or the landlord will go through with all the application they have received, and if you are successful, they will let you know about it. They will also do some background checks, employment checks, and reference checks as well. There can be quite a lot of competition for certain properties, so it's advisable to apply for the properties as soon as possible and make sure that you provide the correct details in your application form. Step 4. Signing the lease. If your application is successful, it's time to sign the lease. A lease is a legally binding contract between you and your landlord. A lease can be a fixed term, for example 12 months or a specific time frame, or can be periodic, like month-by-month basis. This lease document usually contains information like how long you can live in the property, how much will be the rent, how you need to pay this rent, if there are any specific conditions to the property, how much will be the bond, and when the inspections will be conducted. When you're signing the lease, you will also need to pay a bond alongside with that. A bond is a refundable security deposit that you will need to give to your landlord or your property agent, and then they will have to lodge it to the relevant government authority in your state or territory. And this government body will keep the bond until the end of the lease. Usually bond is equivalent to 4 weeks of rent. A bond is usually kept to cover any damages that may be caused by the tenants during their tenancy. And if you are planning to sublet the property to other tenants, then it's always a good idea to get an approval from the landlord first. And it's always a good idea to get their name on the lease as well. Step 5. Condition report. Now, once you move into the property, your property manager or the landlord must provide you a condition report. The condition report is a document that talks about the general conditions of the property. And usually you will need to complete this condition report and provide information in it related to any damages that you have seen or noticed in the property. And it is also advisable to take photos of the property before you move in. Step 6. Inspections. Now, while you're renting the property, it's a good idea to keep the property clean and tidy. The property manager or the landlord will conduct the regular inspections of the property to make sure that it's well maintained. Usually it's done at least 2 to 3 times in a year. And usually you will need to receive a written notice from the landlord or the property manager at least few days before the inspection. They just can't walk into the property anytime they like, even if it's their own property. And if there are some repairs that needs to be done, you will need to notify your landlord or the property manager. Step 7. Ending the lease. Now, once the lease is over, It is up to you and your landlord if you would like to extend the lease. However, if you don't want to continue with the lease, you will need to notify your landlord or your property manager at least 28 days before the end of the lease. And they would need to do the same if they want you to leave the property at the end of the lease. Now, when you're leaving the property, it's important that you leave the property in a neat and a tidy way. Your landlord or the property manager will do the final inspections. When the final inspections are done, your landlord or your property manager must lodge a bond claim form to get the bond back for yourself. However, if there is any disagreement or there is a dispute, then landlord or the property manager must file a complaint to tribunal. If you don't receive your bond back within few days, you can also apply to tribunal for claiming your bond back. And make sure to cancel all the utility bills like gas, electricity, water and internet once you move out of the property. And you can redirect all the mails that you may receive using Australia Post's mail redirect service. And that's how renting in Australia works. Hope you find this guide useful. See you in the next one.